Hello everybody, welcome to the North of Tyne Cabinet. This is our first Cabinet of the year, so Happy New Year. This is the first time anybody's seen us together. Despite the ice and the bad weather, some warm news of the work we're doing. We're going to have an update on some of our programmes and actually hear from some of the people whose lives we're affecting directly. But one excellent piece of news that was announced the back end of last week is the £34 million funding for what's known as the Northumberland line. That's the railway line that goes from Ashington through Bedlington, Blythe Bebbside, Newsham, Seaton Delaval, integrates into North Tyneside at Northumberland Park and through to Newcastle. And of course goes back the other way. We should stop saying this is the Ashington to Newcastle line. It's Newcastle to Ashington as well. So this is a wonderful example of what happens when we work together, led of course by colleagues in Northumberland. So I was just wondering if I invite Glenn to say a couple of words.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is a wonderful bit of news, great for all of us, whether we live in Northumberland or Newcastle or in the region generally. So I would actually just like to thank everyone who's been involved with this. It's not just been a solo effort by the County Council and the government at all. It's been a group of people with the right interests of the region and the right interests of the county and Newcastle and elsewhere at heart, and therefore very important. So thank you all very much indeed for the support that you've given on this, and I look forward to being on one of the first trains, perhaps meeting you, Mr. Mayor, if we're both still around, politically that is, in 2 and a bit years.
That will be excellent, yes. Unfortunately, I think it's only quite a short journey time, so there won't be a buffet car and we can't share a cuppa on there. So let's move on to today's business. There are no apologies to absence. We have everybody here. And unless I'm much misinformed, there are no declarations of interest. Please speak now if otherwise no. Okay, so the minutes of the last meeting, they have been included in the agenda. But Pat, can we just agree them?
Great.
Thank you. Yeah. And there are no formal announcements. So this takes us first on to the first significant item of business, which is the employability and inclusion portfolio. Very often when we have cabinet meetings, AGMs and these things, they're very dry, they're very budgetary. Yet all the work we're doing is about changing people's lives. So I think this report, I'm really quite looking forward to it because we're hearing from how it actually matters in practice. Over to you, Councillor McCartney. Joyce.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm really pleased to be here to present an update on my cabinet portfolio today. We've heard the news this week, and I know we've just heard really good news about the investment in rail, but we've also heard the national news about unemployment figures across the country, and of course we're all very, very concerned about that, and that is affecting residents in our area too. And I kind of want us to remember the context in which we're working, because I think we've carried on implementing the projects that we have agreed to fund, supporting other organisations, and that's very clear through this report. But we're doing it in a very different context from the one we imagined we were in 18 months ago. Chair, we all understand that we believe that opportunity for all is a key priority for us. It's obviously core to my portfolio work, and we're focusing on removing the barriers which make it difficult for residents in our area to take up the employment and training opportunities that are offered. In the update today, we're providing an update on the projects and programmes which the North of Tyne Combined Authority have supported, which empower our residents to gain the skills and the resources that they need to take ownership of their own futures. Our work has continued through the pandemic. We have continued to develop skills and training opportunities. Chair, you and I were involved in the launch of the Good Jobs work, not far off 100 people joining us, 100 businesses joining us to learn more about that. So I think setting all of that out so that we inform the rest of Cabinet, but also inform others who are following our work. I think that's partly what we're trying to do today. The report in front of us captures the feedback we're receiving from residents who've been accessing some of the programmes that we're offering, so we can hear from them in their own words. And I'd like to reassure Cabinet colleagues that what we're doing in terms of our spending is making a difference. So I'd like to pass over to our IT experts to make sure it all works, Chair, so that we can hear from local residents in their own words. Thank you, Paul.
I got involved because of a family friend, and it's about, I don't know, just getting in with the elderlies, I suppose. Yeah, it gets in. It's not like a school or something though, it's more like hands-on, you just get involved straight away. I don't know, I suppose I've came out my shell a little bit more. I can communicate with people a bit and I less shy sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've just like learned everyone's a bit different as well. Like you don't know what I expect from people when they come in. I'm looking to start working in a care home with the elderly or something, or possibly the mentally disabled. I'm unsure yet. Or childcare. I'm doing a lot of courses here. Well, I'm planning on doing a lot of courses here because there's a wide variety of choice.
I'm in the beauty industry. I've been in the beauty industry 8 years now. I absolutely love it. That's my passion. It's what helped save my life really in a certain way. Got a letter through my door saying, look, lockdown's here. Lots of people are obviously feeling quite bad mentally because of it, without obviously normal mental health problems on top of that. And obviously there's a course here to help you with understanding who you are and how to basically put your passion to good use and run your own business from what you love doing. And I thought, you know what it is, that is for me. It doesn't matter how down you are, as long as there's someone there that's willing to grab your hand and bring you up, take it. Make that leap of faith, just take it. if that letter didn't come through my door, I'd hate to think where I'd still be. I'd probably still be sitting in the corner of my kitchen like, oh, I don't know what to do with my life. But these guys, they've helped bring my confidence back. They've helped like everything really. Just, yeah, helped us get back out into society just through one little letter.
Great, thanks very much, Paul. And I'm really pleased that worked very well, Chair. I mean, you can see the. I want to say it's not the support; it's the soft skills, isn't it? It's the confidence building and the encouragement that have helped Angel and Alex through that. Who've got a vision for what they want to do, and actually just listening to Angel again there. We need many more workers in the caring sector, don't we? To look after all of us as we increasingly need that level of support. So really important that we hear from them. And Chair, I just want to say that, I think listening to our residents has got to be at the heart of what we are trying to do through the programmes. And it makes some of the projects that are reported in my portfolio update today real, because we can actually see the difference that we're making on the ground. So our investments are equipping our residents with the skills and actually through this pandemic, I think with the resilience that they need as well to navigate the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities that we know are already out there. So I think to note, Chair, that we are delivering our inclusive economy ambitions through our stakeholders and our partners to make sure that we're sharing the very best practice, doing that in a coordinated a long-lasting way to make sure that we are truly making the North of Tyne the home of ambition. Chair, the report is here to note the progress that we've made in various areas of work, and it does include digital inclusion, our working homes, the carers programme, what we're doing with adult education, the Inclusive Economy Board, and more, and note the impact that we're making through this portfolio. And I'm very happy to answer any questions, of course, if there are any. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joyce. You know, like you, I always find it very difficult to enumerate all the things we're doing because with so many active projects, by the time you list them all. Yeah, I see Robin is indicated. Robin.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just wanted to comment on what an incredible bit of work this has been, and I think showcasing the impact of our collective work on people's lives is so important in order that we stay in touch with, I guess, why we're here. Personally, as someone who would never have been in the job I'm in had I not done a lot of volunteering and met some inspirational mentors along the way, I think it's really important to note the role of the voluntary sector in terms of helping people to get the confidence to even think about employment, never mind find the right job, whether that's volunteer and training or mentoring. And those examples of the stuff that Cedarwood's done and the Carer Centre, I think is such a great example of how the voluntary sector kind of sits within that system of employment and aspirations and helping people achieve, I guess, their dreams, really. So I just wanted to, yeah, really lovely to see. So well done on pulling that together. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. That's a really good point. It is that proximity, the people on the ground. There is no one size fits all, and that's where the voluntary sector makes such a difference. Thank you. I see Norma, you've indicated. Would you like to speak, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say congratulations to everybody involved, to be quite honest. It was lovely to hear real experiences from people out there who actually have been waiting for an opportunity to grow and develop. And it really does, it's heartwarming, to be quite honest. And when I heard Joyce, Councillor McCarthy, introduce the agenda item and just said those words, opportunities for all. And surely that's what we should be about, to be quite honest, because without that support and help to get into a situation where you have that inner pride, you have some dignity, and you feel good about yourself, it's most important to help those people to grow. Well done. And I really, really found it very heartwarming listening to those people. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, that was beautifully put. Yeah. I can't see anyone else indicating. So thank you very much for that report, Joyce. I know there's a vast amount of work goes on behind the scenes, so thank you to all the team involved in that. There's only one recommendation. It's just a recommendation to note the progress, the positive impact this is really making on people's lives, and to the benefit of our residents. So judging by the contributions, I think that is agreed, which will move us on. Thank you very much to the next item, which is the investment fund update, which is led by Councillor Pickard. Bruce.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is the update. For the purpose of this is to update Cabinet on the progress we've made so far in the North of Tyne Investment Fund. So far, we have over £40 million of committed projects, which are expected to create 2,732 jobs and draw in more than 100 million of private sector leverage. In addition, there are advanced plans to bring forward at least another 20 million of activity in the next few months, which will create hundreds of more jobs. The report highlights progress on several of our significant programmes of investment. These include the 5 million COVID-19 Capacity Fund, which has already provided advice and guidance to 263 businesses and employment and skills support to 349 residents. On the Brownfield Housing Programme, in July, North of Tyne Combined Authority secured 23.85 million from the government for the National Brownfield Housing Fund. We have accepted the first 14 schemes on our Brownfield Housing Fund programme, meaning they've been invited to develop a full business case. This report outlines how we've agreed funding for the first two of these schemes. We have awarded $2,948,000 for funding the Scotswood Phase 2 to complete the site development works to enable the construction of 243 homes in the next phase of the delivery, and 500,000 has been awarded to Newbiggin Hall to enable the construction of 43 new homes. On our offshore infrastructure and digital innovation programme, we have made a very successful call for expression of interest, and several projects have now been developed with a full business case to apply to the North Tyne Combined Authority funding. On youth hubs, if you remember in September, the North of Tyne Combined Authority agreed to play a leading role in supporting young people through the development and co-delivery of the National Youth Hubs and Kickstarts programme. The North of Tyne Combined Authority is developing proposals for an online apprenticeship hub, which will connect residents, employers, parents and carers to careers advice. Through the creation of an online apprentice hub, the Combined Authority can ensure equal access to apprenticeship advice and guidance and access to vacancy information, enabling all residents to make an informed decision about their futures. Cabinet today is being asked to approve the funding of 150,000 and grant delegated authority to the Director of Economic Growth, working in consultation with the appropriate Cabinet member, Mayor and Investment Panel to develop the business case and commissioning a digital platform to connect young people and employees to make it more acceptable. This would position the North of Tyne as the first combined authority with an end-to-end digital solution that enables young people to connect with employers. Finally, the report highlights to Cabinet that the partners across the region are developing a bid for the government's free ports competition, and I'm sure there'll be an update on that from the relevant Cabinet people later on. I would therefore ask Cabinet to agree the recommendations in this report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Yeah, and it just covers so many things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But this tails very nicely into that last item where we're talking about opportunities. And in the current economic climate, it's young people who are finding it incredibly difficult. So this work that we're doing with exactly as you described, end-to-end digital opportunity for people to go into apprenticeships is, I think, so important. Glenn, you've indicated to speak.
Yes, thanks very much. I wonder if we could just talk for a second about the apprenticeship hub, which I think sounds great. Could we just know a little bit more about kind of how that's going to look, and timescales and availability for people throughout the Combined Authority area? Just a little bit more detail there, particularly around timescales as well.
Perhaps I could ask one of the officers to come in, because they've been working with the DWP on bringing the proposals jointly forward. So I don't know if, who's on the call with me want to answer that particular question.
I'm happy to. This is Henry. I'm happy to pick that one up, Councillor Pickard. So to Councillor Sanderson's question, there's sort of two things I'd say by way of a response now, and I'm happy to follow up with further detail after this as well. On the timescale, we're working really closely with Department of Work and Pensions, and the exact timescale is going to depend on when their part of the discretionary funding for this piece is unlocked. So we would like this to move as soon as possible, and indeed making sure there's a delegation within this report is about us being able to move quickly and flexibly as soon as that national resource is unlocked. In terms of the plans for how this is going to work, we, as a point of principle, as with all of our programmes, of making sure that this is as joined up as possible, and we're working in a bottom-up way with our local authorities to make sure that we're not creating multiple front doors for people. So that's a really important design principle in all of this. I'm really happy to come back with further detail at a future informal Cabinet, Councillor Sanderson, if that would be helpful to you and the team as well.
It would be very helpful, please. I think it's so important that we get it right and share in a really important area. So yes, if you wouldn't mind, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Absolutely, we'll make sure that's covered. And I see Robin with your hand up.
Yeah, just I guess to note, great idea in terms of the apprenticeship hub. Clearly, there's some real challenges around young people's anxieties around employment, which is outlined in the report. I suppose I don't know how realistic it is, but if we could make apprenticeships easier to access from the point of view of a small employer, maybe a small voluntary sector organisation, which can offer a great opportunity to a young person who might live in that neighbourhood, then that would be most welcome. I think there's a real will to offer apprenticeships, but sometimes some of the bureaucracy involved can put people off. So if there's a way of the likes of Voda kind of supporting that process, then we're really keen to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you very much for that offer as well. I'm sure the team will be working closely with you on that. I don't see any more indications to speak. So there was a number of recommendations in there. the recommendations 1 to 3 were actually to note progress. So I think we can accept, unless anybody has any objection to not note the progress. I think we can agree that. The fourth one, a substantive item with a funding commitment, an allocation of £150,000 from the Inclusive Economy Innovation Fund for the apprenticeship hub, as described with that delegated authority, both there and which Bruce outlined. So do we have that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, this moves on to the next item, which is the budget proposals. For the benefit of anybody watching online, the difference between budget proposals and budget monitoring is not always clear. Budget proposals is what we intend to spend. Budget monitoring is saying, have those plans turned out as we expected? So item 7, the budget proposals, will be Janice, our Chief Financial Officer, and then there are some comments to come from Councillor Roughhead, Gregor, who's the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So I'll hand over to you for this item, Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you rightly point out, this is the authority's budget proposals, principally for 21-22, with an indicative 4-year plan alongside that. We brought a draft report to Cabinet back at the end of November, and this report is updated following, I guess, clarifications and subsequent announcements in the spending review of a further £1 million for the Mayoral Capacity Fund, plus in addition to the work we've done with Overview and Scrutiny and consultation with the business sector and the community and voluntary sector. And indeed, we published the proposals online in a bit more of an easier fashion, and have seen certainly some hits in terms of the public looking at the authority's budget proposals. We have not changed the format of the proposals, so we continue to set out expectations for the corporate budget, the investment fund, adult education budget, and the brownfield land programme budget. And as you would expect, we continue to include the Tyne and Wear transport levy, which are passported through us across to NECA. I've reviewed the risk across the budget and considered the reserves that we have, and I don't think there's any need to increase what we call the strategic reserve, which is our general reserve to manage financial risk at this stage for the authority. So we'll maintain that at a proposed £200,000 for next financial year. We include a note for members around the LEPS accountable body function that we carry out. And indeed, we've got the updated Treasury Management Strategy. So I'm happy to take any further questions on the recommended report as it stands. And as you mentioned, we have the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny to report back to Cabinet on the work that we did with the group.
Jimmy, you're on mute.
Everybody does it at least once a meeting, don't they? For the benefit of those who aren't lip readers, Gregor, would you like to introduce your item and contribution now?
Thanks, Mr. Matt. So just to begin, I would like to, on behalf of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, thank our staff and officers for their hard work over the past year. It's been difficult times, and I think they've done a fantastic job and performed fantastically for our North of Tyne region, especially Paul, Henry, Ruth and Janice, who a directorate who've involved scrutiny a lot, and probably the best directorate I've ever come across in local government in terms of engagement with scrutiny. So well done to them. But just in terms of reporting back on the budget specifically now. So in December, we received the initial budget proposals, of which we anticipate, with this being a relatively new combined authority, that there had to be capacity for growth. We're a very lean organisation as it is at the minute, but as you know, potentially more powers or more funds become accessible to the combined authority, inevitably our corporate resources would need to grow to reflect the increased manpower that's needed for enabling projects to be successful. So we anticipate that. We had a budget workshop in January, of which the only material change that we got updated on was the Mayoral Capacity Fund, which we notes is going to be used to fund coronavirus recovery work. So as and when that's used, I think the committee would appreciate detail on exactly how that's used to benefit our committees. We also note the transport levies, but I think as chair of Overview and Scrutiny, it would be fair to also just point out to cabinet members, especially those of whom are on the Joint Transport Committee, that there was one comment from a Tyne Wear councillor, a minority comment, that the way the budget is for the joint transport, fair enough for this year, but there's a point in time where it might need to be considered for the interests of the JTC function of increasing the levies. I've just informed that I think that's appropriate to report back to Cabinet in terms of that was feedback, and that's for you guys to decide at a later date. And from where we were sat last year, the two recommendations that we had were public consultation on the next budget, which is this year's budget, and more clarity on the forward plan that we go beyond the 28 days. And I would say as an authority, we've made great improvements and steps in taking those forwards. In terms of the public consultation, it's been good to see that Janice has done engagement with the business and third sectors, and obviously we've had quite a bit of online engagement with the posts that we've put up, but still no public comments. And I know a pandemic, people's priorities are slightly different, and the budget of a combined authority to people might not be as exciting as a local authority budget. So perhaps for the forthcoming year, the next budget after this one, perhaps we could look to doing, some engagement over the summertime, just get people thinking about combined authority so it doesn't get mixed up with the local authority budget. And the forward plan, I would just say it has been much better than where we were before we became a combined authority, really live in May 2019. But still, just remind cabinet members and senior officers, if there's a project planned, being put on the forward plan as soon as possible is of great benefit to us operating as a scrutiny committee and the whole authority working together. Sorry. And I think probably it's worthwhile, the final thing highlighting within the report, which is paragraph 1.45 on page 61. Just this came up as a discussion within the budget workshop that, well, we know stereotypically the North has been a region that's always the sole relation of the country, but the geography of the North of Tyne area, we've got a good rural area, we've got a good urban area, we've got a good mixed area. It's very representative of England as a whole. So we would, and I'm sure all leaders of the council and yourself and obviously partners in NECA as well are always pushing for the Northeast to get more, but just to maybe be a little bit parochial for North of Tyne interests here, that any potential government initiative or, idea, scheme that could potentially be rolled out across the country, the North of Tyne would be a fantastic testbed area because, well, we're representative of the whole country, and if it works in this region, it can be easily scaled up to the whole of England. So I would just encourage you to push that point. And I would just like to thank the committee over the year for their engagement, and we've had good turnout from members, and it was good to see at our workshop as well that it was a mix of, full committee members and substitute committee members. So we got the feedback of other backbenchers from the local authorities, and I think the budget is a very good budget proposal for this year. And just going back to the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny, we recommend that Cabinet accepts this year's budget and takes into account our comments within the report. Thank you.
Gregor, thank you very much for that feedback. Thank you for the very warm and supportive words. On behalf of the Directorate, I'll not bring them each individually to thank you, but it's really nice to hear that it's working so well. And obviously that you and I meet regularly, because I'm very keen for Overview and Scrutiny to be a part of the combined authority. Regarding the JTC levy feedback, thank you. I'm very much, we'll pass that forward. Obviously, that's very much more a JTC governance rather than a North of Tyne governance issue. And on budget engagement, you're absolutely right. Budgets, in and of themselves, inevitably are quite alienating for a lot of people. What we've made great strides on and are continuing to amplify even more is the engagement about the program design, the co-design, because that's actually the things that people see when it comes to making a difference to their lives. So that's very welcome feedback. And I think there's probably quite a lot of ministers and secretaries of state sick of hearing me use the word microcosm when describing the north of Tyne, that we have coast, country, towns, rural, city, about us saying, yes, let us try it here first, because we'll do a good job. And exactly as you say, if it works here, you'll know it works elsewhere. Does anybody from the Cabinet have any questions on the budget proposals? And that looks like everybody has read them diligently and is quite happy to proceed. So on that basis, we'll just go through these. It's a little bit dry, but necessary. That is what democracy is. So item 1 is to agree the corporate budget for 2021 to 22 as set out in paragraph 1.2. And for all of these, take into account the comments made by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So is number 1 agreed?
Agreed.
Just a nod. Thank you. Number 2, to agree the investment fund as set out in paragraph 1.3.
Agreed.
Yes, thank you. Point 3, agree the adult education budget as set out in paragraph 1.4.
Agreed.
Thank you. The Brownfield Land Programme budget, I'm normally used to calling that the Brownfield Housing budget, as set out in paragraph 1.5.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. This is necessary. Agree the Tyne Weir levies approved as in point 5. They will be issued on the 15th of February this year. Is that agreed?
Agreed, yes.
Thank you. Agree to hold the financial reserves as set out in paragraph 1.6, as Janice, the Chief Financial Officer, described. She will keep those under review. So point 6, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And point 7, to note that we, as the accountable body for the North East LEP, the budget as per paragraph 1.7. Agreed. And item 8, the Treasury Management Strategy as set out in paragraph 1.8 and Appendix B. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, everybody, for your perseverance through that list. So this moves us on to item 8, which is the budget monitoring report, to see how we're doing. And again, this is Janice Gillespie, the Chief Finance Officer.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, as you said earlier, this is where we look at our in-year budget monitoring position. So this is the forecast based on what we've seen up to the end of December in terms of actual financial activity, and then forecasting that forward to what we're expecting by the year end. So just taking some of the highlights in terms of the corporate budget, we do have some variations that are set out in table 1 of the report, which shows some savings around staffing costs and our service level agreements, but some additional advisor costs and other costs, which some of those are in connection with additional grant funding that we've received for the Brownfield Land project as an example, and kind of some of the additional costs relating to additional delivery of the investment fund. But overall, the account remains on balance. We've got additional income due to additional mayoral capacity funding and some brownfield land funding that we can apply to development of that programme, and some additional interest receivable. But overall, the corporate budget will come in on balance. In terms of the investment fund, you've heard earlier an update on the investment fund in terms of its actual performance. So we set out in this picture what the overall programme looks like in terms of commitments. So to date, we've got something in the region of 40 million committed against a potential 90 million allocation for the investment programme. And you've heard earlier in the meeting how that fund's actually progressing. In terms of the Brownfield Housing Land Fund, we have to spend £5 million this financial year, which is not an insignificant challenge due to the timing of the funding being issued. But clearly, as I said earlier, a lot of the schemes have been progressed and accepted onto the programme, so that the risk of not spending that money, I would say, has been reducing as we've gone through the last couple of months and I'm confident we'll manage to spend the overall programme in accordance with the timetable that's set out. Similarly, adult education budget, I think, plan to spend in excess of £14 million this financial year. What I would say is clearly there are some challenges as a result of COVID that the team continue to work with providers specifically around the responses to those, and we'll continue to monitor that as we head towards year end and understand the financial implications around that. But the team are absolutely working with providers to understand those consequences and the financial arrangements we have with the providers. So that's probably one of the key risk areas for us at the moment in terms of that ongoing delivery for the rest of this financial year and into 21-22. Table 7 on 1.8 sets out a bit more detail on the reserves that we hold at the moment. So didn't really want to add any further detail to that. Clearly, we keep our overall reserves position under scrutiny, under review, and we'll continue to monitor that as we head towards the year end. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Janice. Unless anybody has any particular questions, obviously this has been circulated in advance. No questions. So can I just say actually that, it's a remarkable piece of work that you and the team have done to have dealt with all the variations in COVID, additional funding streams coming on, the whole staff team and cabinet. Thank you for all your collective work on this, to have taken on a huge new funding stream, got the stuff in place to start delivering it, and the fact that the budget actually balances at the end of that, I think is a terrific piece of work. And I look forward to a headline in the regional press saying combined authority is remarkably skilled at hitting its budget targets. Wouldn't it be lovely if the press would report on this sort of stuff as well? So there's only the recommendation there is just to note the position as set out in the report there. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, so this takes us on to item 9, which is appointments, and John Softley, the monitoring officer, will lead us through this.
Chair, it's a very straightforward report asking Cabinet to confirm the appointments set out in section 1. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Well, for the benefit of anybody watching, Cabinet's recommended to appoint Councillor Glenn Sanderson on the North East LEPS Business Growth Advisory Board, Councillor Rob Higgins as a substitute member on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, filling an existing vacancy, and Councillor Catherine Seymour to be appointed as a member of Audit and Standards, replacing Councillor Jeff Watson, and with also Councillor Barry Flux to replace Councillor Seymour as a substitute member. I can't anticipate any of that being controversial. Is everybody agreed? Thank you very much. So this moves on to item 10, which is the North East LEP funding decision update. We are the accountable body for the North East LEP. So Janice, you're introducing this item again. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as we said, as the accountable body for the North East LEP, it's important that Cabinet are kept abreast of funding decisions made by the LEP. Clearly, the work that we do as accountable body officers, if you like, is to be party to the decision making, to ensure that we are comfortable that the decisions are being made appropriately and in line with financial arrangements and legal arrangements. So John and I carry out that activity together. So what this gives you is a schedule of all the decisions that the LEP has made since between September and November, which clearly some members will have seen as part of the LEP board in any instance. All have been funded through existing funding arrangements, and what you see is a significant range of activity around the Getting Building Fund, which was a recent announcement as part of the response to COVID. So I'm happy to take any questions, but basically it's an information item for Cabinet and for me to give assurance that we are happy with the decision-making process.
Thank you, Janice. And the report itself contains, exactly as you say, quite an extensive list of investments being made. So I don't know if we have any comments. Don't feel obliged, but you're very welcome to comment. Lucy is obviously as LEP board chair.
No comment to make. Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much then, everybody. If nobody's commenting, then we can just note that report. I'm sure that's agreed, which has run through the business of the meeting. The date and time of the next meeting will be 2 p.m. on the 23rd of March this year. That will be a virtual meeting. So thank you very much. We will. There is one item to move forward, which has commercially confidential information. So we'll be doing that once we're offline. Thank you very much.